The Backrooms. You've been here before. Entity number 108. The Birds. Habitat. Majority. Image caption. The birds mid-flight. The photographer apologizes for the poor image quality. Description. The birds are a murmuration of small bird-like entities that hunt in groups. Behaviors. The birds migrate frequently, never remaining in one level. These entities blend into their environment by mimicking the appearance of objects as a hunting technique to avoid being spotted by prey. The birds remain hidden and do not react until they're approached. When an individual gets within 15 feet of them, they will begin to make a shrill noise that, when heard, will induce a hypnotic-like state, in which an individual cannot move their body on their own, and will involuntarily approach where the birds are hidden. The hypnotic-like state has been reported to induce auditory hallucinations. See interview logs 12/05/2020, 1 and 2. When an individual is lured into the colony, the birds will start to latch onto the body and proceed to eat away at the skin, only stopping when it reaches the bone. The best course of action, when put into the aforementioned hypnotic-like state by this entity, is to shine any available light onto the birds, as it has been observed to temporarily blind the entity. Biology. The birds are 5 to 7 inches in length and resemble crudely drawn birds that are bright blue in appearance. Further observation shows that light passes through the bodies of the birds. With how light affects the birds, it is possible that the entity's sensory parts form most of their bodies. The birds can also feed on skin, despite the lack of a visible mouth. Discovery. The first photographed evidence of the birds was taken by Elijah Macarag and Narda Macarag in November of 2020 after an encounter with the entity. Interview logs 12/05/2020, 1 and 2. The following are two interviews between a Meg officer who has asked to remain anonymous and the Macarag siblings. Interview logs 12/05/2020-1. Begin log -1. 1840. Interviewer. Meg officer. Interviewee. Narda Macarag. Meg officer. Please state your name for the interview. N. Macarag. My name is Narda Macarag. Did you see the picture I took? Meg officer. Yes. Thanks to you and your brother, other people will be safer now. N. Macarag. Is he okay right now? He looked pretty hurt when I found him. He had this really gross wound on his arm. Meg officer. Your brother is hurt, but he's being taken care of. If you don't mind, can you answer a few questions? Meg officer. Can you describe your encounter with the entity? N. Macarag. The birds? Well, all I remember is that Elijah suddenly disappeared, and I heard this weird sound. Meg officer. Oh? Um, can you describe the sound for me? In Macarag, it was. It sounded pretty high, but, like, quiet. Imagine screaming under your breath. Meg officer. Ah, I see then. So you actually heard the birds. Did you start walking on your own? In Macarag. No, not really. It was super loud though. I kinda thought that maybe it would start to get other creepy, weird things to start attacking us. Meg officer. You didn't. That's probably from the distance. Well, what about when you got closer? Did you start moving on your own then? In Macarag. Nope. They were still making the sound, but it looked like Elijah was the one super freaked out about it. I saw him waving the flare around and thought that maybe it scared the birds away. That's why I got a blurry pic of them. Meg officer. I see. Well, thank you for your time, Narda. I'll go talk to your brother next when he wakes up. In Macarag. Oh yeah, here's a drawing I made of what happened. Pictures are needed in these things, right? So yeah. Narda then hands the interviewer a drawing depicting what she had witnessed. Note: it would seem like the noise that the birds make don't really affect anyone outside of that 15-meter radius. It's also possible that birds can only focus on one target at a time. It would explain why they need to isolate their prey. Further research on encounters with the birds should be done to see if this is a consistent thing. End log 1905. Interview log 12/05/2020 -2. Begin log -2. 1913. Interviewer Meg Officer. Interviewee Elijah Macarag. Meg Officer. Please state your name for the interview. E. Macarag. Elijah Macarag. Well, I really want to get straight to the point. Meg Officer. Go ahead then. E. Macarag. This isn't my first time I've heard of these freaky ass birds attacking and eating people. When I heard they were blue, I assumed that it was that macaw with the creepy colt, but it wasn't. Meg Officer. Prior to documentation of the entity, had you heard of anything about the birds? E. Macarag. Just some rumors about your people finding fresh human bones in random levels. Meg Officer. Did you intend to personally investigate the existence of the entity? Elijah just stares at the Meg Officer. E. Macarag. What? No, I can't do this. Meg Officer. Excuse me? E. Macarag. I was just saying shit out of my ass because I was afraid you were going to show this to Narda. I'd rather her not know anything. She only saw the end and took the photo you needed. That's all she should know. Meg Officer. Ignoring that, you lied. Can you please elaborate on that? E. Macarag. I couldn't focus on the fact that the birds were biting down my arm. I couldn't feel it. I know you people will probably just write this down as a hallucination or an effect of the hypnosis, but it didn't feel like it. Meg Officer. Can you elaborate on that further? E. Macarag. I, uh... I could only hear things. I heard the noise of the birds, but there was something under all that. It was muffled, as if I could hear it if I came closer. I came to only after I lit the road flare. Or, well, I think I did. Narda scared off the rest of the birds with the camera flash. Meg Officer, can you describe what exactly you heard? Both sat in silence for 2 minutes. E. Macarag, I think that you and your group should keep asking others what they think. Meg Officer, you said earlier that you believe what you were hearing was not a hallucination. Can you please elaborate on that? E. Macarag, like I said, go ask other people first. At this point, Elijah refused to answer any further questions by the interviewer. End log 1958. Note: further interviews with the Macarag siblings were supposed to be done the following day, but Meg personnel have found that the two had disappeared. Do's and don'ts. Do. Avoid going into levels without a flashlight or any similar light source. Blind them with light if attacked. Don't. Try to approach any area where a shrill noise can be heard. Let them keep feeding once they latch on.